So officially, welcome to our informally formal FrippVT user meeting, where we open the doors for our FrippVT users to help them with any specific challenge that they have at the moment. And Barbara, who is a fairly new FrippVT user, she is putting together her message, talking to, as she says, the everyday working person, sharing advice that doesn't sound like a lofty content expert that doesn't relate to real people. Did I summarize that okay, Barbara?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And the question was, and we had discussed this a little when we first got together, is should I blog, should I YouTube, and which should I do first? And my answer is you do it simultaneously. And first of all, you might take one topic, because a blog and a YouTube video can be as short as 3 or 4 paragraphs. It just has to be somewhat meaningful. And if you wrote a blog post, and I do this on a regular basis, and we do this with our Tuesday mailings, we'll send out information. Some of them have a short video attached to it. Some have the entire transcript as a video recorder, So you have the video and the audio in the same message. For longer articles, I just have a short version of the content. And if you record what you just wrote, you can put that in YouTube, and some of the content you put in the notes that makes it easier to get attention in YouTube. Does that make sense?
It does.
Now, if you were to say, Patricia, I would find it faster and easier to just get in front of the webcam and give them information, then do that. And then have it transcribed and clean it up into a blog post. Some people like sitting down and writing. Others find it easier to have a couple of notes about what they want to say and then say it. No right or wrong, whatever suits you fast. The challenge is, whatever you decide, do it. And come back at next month's FrippVT and tell us you've done it. All right, so welcome to, oh my gosh, oh, Karen's coming in again. All right. So Claudette, hello, nice to see you. And thank you for my edible bouquet. I am still nibbling, but not much left. All right, Bill Brown is a longtime friend of the family. And hello, Greg, nice to see you.
Yes.
And we have Christy. Now, as Christy, you were well, Brian was the second person to sign in, I believe. Is there any area around speaking you want any advice on, Brian? Or you just like to hang out with me?
I just like to hang out with you, Patricia. But
that's what I thought.
I'm here to sharpen my skills. I was a Toastmaster for about 19 years. And then I stopped going for a couple of years. And I really enjoy speaking, but I've been a bit naughty. I haven't been putting as much effort into, I think, the change of technology. I think I need to embrace the technology. And at first I thought Zoom wasn't the same, but the reality is now that this is the new normal. And I need to embrace the technology and accept this is the way things are going to go for quite a while more.
Yes. Now, as a Toastmaster, this is your chance, Claudette, to show off. And I have to tell you, once in a while, I have requests for coaching with assignments I do not want, you couldn't pay me to take, and a couple of them I've sent Claudette's way. One was a very impressive looking executive said to me, would you coach my son? I naturally imagined this was a young man in his early 20s. It turned out, how old was he, Claudette, when I passed him off to you?
He was 6 years old.
Yeah. However, he got great results from what you've done. So tell him how you helped him.
Well,
Tell everyone.
I'm still working with him.
Mm-hmm.
I was nervous because although I had worked with children,
I can't stand this. This is not fair.
However, I just kept giving him the basics and going over them and over them. His parents are politically involved and often throw parties, fundraising parties for candidates. And he wanted his son to at least be able to do welcome speeches. Since then, his son has not only done welcome speeches, but a longer speech thanking volunteers in the community at a benefit luncheon in December, 2 years in a row. So he is building his speaking skills. We're now trying to work on humor.
Well, you see, so that is a great example of someone that's willing to invest in their children. It's just not an assignment for me. And Claudette, this is your second chance to show off to other friends of ours who have been Toastmasters. Tell them how well you did in the international speech contest.
Well, the speech contest I competed in was going to have the convention in Kuala Lumpur. For that reason, that year, they had many more people trying out. According to International, they had 35,000 contestants. I ended up in the top 90.
Wow.
I ended up in Kuala Lumpur. So part of that was due to all the work my sister and I put into it, rehearsing almost every night. But part of it was due to a lot of really good suggestions from you, Patricia.
Well, in all fairness, I heard Claudette deliver a speech to the Breakfast Club, Ryan, when we were live. And part of her speech was the speech and how she put it together. And I gasped. I honestly could not have done a better job than she did. So that was thumbs up. All right, well, welcome to our other friends. The purpose of our VT meeting is to answer any questions you have, give you some advice, and as you just heard, chance to show off if that is what you want to do. Now, Christy, you were the next person to sign in. Do you have any specific question around speaking? I know you signed up for FrippVT sales. What could we do to help you?
I love all your content, Patricia, and I have learned so much. I do many demo webinars right now. And when we had this open house last month, I shared with you that my new opening now is the congratulations and thanking my key contact, if they've provided me with information. And that has been very well received on the other end. And I've just been printing off some of the PDF documents that you have so I can have actually a little binder of little helpful hints and tips.
Good. And for everyone, the FrippVT file vault is, we always say, is the second most valuable part.
Yes.
And you have access to it as long as you're a VT member. However, it's not a bad idea to print them out and keep them, as Christy has, in one place quickly, so you could look something up at the last minute. Well, hello, Edward and Phil and Zeus and Greg. Who would like to ask a question or any area you want to work on?
Beginning a speech, Using a story or not using a story, or depends what you do.
Well, do you have a specific speech in mind?
Or what I talk about is emotional resilience. Like, yeah, you can understand, like being able to control your emotions and that sort of thing, and how to do it.
And do you have a story about the first time you learned this lesson?
I do, yes.
Well, that would be an absolutely great way to begin a presentation.
Oh, great. Well, thanks for that.
Well, give us the first 3 lines.
When I was young, I used to get really fearful when someone got angry.
Okay, stop there. Good. And this is how a good presentation becomes great. We use words to communicate, and our audience remembers what they see. Now, this is a poll for everyone who's here. When you heard this, how old did you imagine Greg was in that story? He just said he was young. Just off the top of your head, how old do you think he might be? Shout out.
16.
16.
9 years old.
9,
6.
10, 6,
14.
8.
I was thinking in the teens somewhere.
in the teens. Now, my question is, thinking from your own life experience, how you acted and reacted to the world when you were 6 is very different than when you acted or reacted at 12 and 18. All is young. It might be helpful to let us know. So when I was 6 years old, I'll give you another piece of advice that I got. Michael Haig, who is one of my friends who's a story consultant, I was rehearsing my presentation that I was delivering for the American Payroll Association. And I got a great idea because I just hired him to come in and speak at the speaker school about stories. And I delivered the content through the eyes of 2 individuals. The young, shy, new persons fresh out of college, first job, and the more seasoned professional who'd been through what Mary had been through. And part of my lines, I was talking about Mary, and I said, Mary was shy. And Michael Haig said, don't tell us she's shy. Show us she's shy. And if you think of this from a screenwriter's point of view, what would they write in a screenplay to let the audience know this person was shy? So what we came up with, she never spoke up in meetings. She sat at the back of the room. So you see, you almost paint scenes in a way that the audience knows what you want to communicate. Now I can see, Phil, you like that idea. You're writing that down.
Mhm.
All right. Now, picking up from Greg's idea about being young, I was at a speaker dinner for the International Coaching Federation, and we were going around. I said, well, you know, if you want to give me your opening lines, I'll help you. And one young woman said, well, I'm using the same line you gave me 3 years ago when you spoke at our NSA chapter in Dallas. I had no recollection. As you know, I frequently give people advice, often when they need it. Anyway, she said, when I was when I was a little girl, and I think I told her when I was 6 years old, my dad, and maybe I'm just thinking of 6 from your story, but she did say when she was 8 years old, my dad traveled a lot. Now, obviously, I'd given her the lesson about tell us how old you were. And then I said, well, when you're young and when you're more mature, a lot of the time varies. If you're a kid, if your dad's gone for 2 days, it's like he's never coming home again. So she changed it to 50% of the time. Now, as a kid, you probably wouldn't have thought that way. But to give the information for what follows for an adult audience, it made sense. All right, Phil, you have a question?
Yes, I do. And I think it's possibly more around mindset. It's just when I'm on Zoom and meeting a prospect, so a consulting client for the first time, it's so much different and unnatural compared to meeting them in person. So how do I use Zoom to build that credibility and connect with them?
And tell our audience what you help them improve in their business.
Sure. So I work with privately held small and mid-market companies, and I help them grow, build wealth for the owners, increase revenues and profitability, and take away financial stress.
And when you set up this first meeting, what are their expectations and your expectations?
Their expectations are probably to understand a little bit more about me and if I can help them. And my expectation is to more clearly understand their situation, their goals, their challenges.
Very good. And that is, and do you have a name for your first meeting?
No.
All right. What I call my first meeting with the prospect is, see if this works for you. It might not, because I know you're a bit more business-like probably than I am in some areas. I always consider my first call a pretend you already hired me session. And the purpose of the meeting is to better understand what you need help with and to decide if we have a match that I would be a good coach. Because there are many good speech coaches, and working with a speech coach is not like working with a psychiatrist. However, you need to feel equally comfortable. Now, I don't know in your own way if you can adapt that. And,
Yes. Yeah.
and so very early in the conversation, what I say is, if we were, now, even before the pandemic, I coached people all over the country in Zoom. Or even I had a special, my own system that was like Zoom before Zoom was invented. And my opening line used to be, if we were locked in a room together, what presentation would we be working on? And I give them coaching. And then I would say, well, I understand you're busy and certainly we can meet in person. However, you're in Boston and I'm in San Francisco. How does this format work with you? Because I'm confident for an executive as busy as you to carve out a whole day is going to be difficult. And so I could get them comfortable with that. And I say at some point we will work together. However, let's begin this way. So I don't know if any of that's helpful.
Yes, thank you. Very helpful. Thank you, Patricia.
Good. All right, Edward, it's so great to see you again. Now, what do you have any questions?
It's nice to see you too.
Yes. I said to
I'm just-
Paul, he was so enthusiastic when he was with us. We need to get him
I'm
in
just
another
listening.
meeting. Yeah. Okay. Well, who would like Zeus?
I'm just having
good.
trouble with my Zoom, so it freezes.
Well, have you got every other application and program closed? Because Zoom takes a certain amount of bandwidth.
I don't. I should do that.
Yeah. Because what's good, I often do alt tab, and I find out I have email open and different folders that I'd worked in before. But that will make a difference. And Joy, I don't know if you want to ask a question in a minute, but Zeus, it was you put your hand up.
Yes, thank you very much, Patricia. I do have a question. I'm not sure if you have a specific resource on FrippVT. I've kind of been scanning and I didn't see specifically what I was looking for, but I want to know if you have a resource or maybe just some pearls of wisdom to be able to give me information on interviewing skills. I know it's kind of selling yourself. I've never really been great at sales, but.
Now, are you interviewing or are they interviewing you?
Actually both, but the one that I'm interested in is me being considered for another position. So them interviewing me.
Ah, perfect. What is one of the questions they're going to ask you?
The most common one is either tell me about yourself or one of the tell me about a time when this happened questions.
Good. And this has worked so many times for others because they've told me, I hope this works for you. You are, as everyone in our Zoom meeting has been successful. And we were all programmed by our mothers to not show off. That's why I say you have to spend more time with Fripp and learn to be a shameless self-promoter. And just as we tell stories about what our happy customers say about our products and our services and us, that's what you do in an interview. I would suggest, see if this would work for you. Zeus, tell us about yourself. Well, if you were to talk to my last manager, such and such, she would tell you blah, 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 blah. If you would talk to my co-workers or my peers, they would tell you Zeus is blah, blah, blah. If you would talk to our partners that I interact with, they would tell you. So use the framework of what other professionals or other influencers, your bosses, your partners, your peers say about you. And this way, using their dialogue, it's as if they are there, because if you're not going, for example, if somebody asked me, Patricia, why would you be the perfect keynote for our convention? I'd say, well, I don't know. However, if you were to ask Dan Maddox, the executive director of the American Payroll Association, he'd tell you, we've been hiring speakers for nearly 40 years, and without a doubt, Patricia Fripp is the most versatile, hassle-free presenter we've ever worked with. So you take that, and I can say that because he says it on my website. But the point is, so if then you are talking about you in ways that we would feel uncomfortable talking about ourselves. Does that work?
Yes, I actually appreciate that. I remember on one of the courses that I took, you had a similar example where I believe if somebody wanted to get a hotel for a big convention in San Francisco, and it kind of reminds me of those stories. So that definitely resonated. Thank you.
Okay, good. For example, I was coaching a woman with, actually it was Genentech, and her example is in FrippVT. And as part of her interview, and then she used the same format for the introduction of this company, you know, everyone had to give a speech, the new leaders, about their life story. And it was you give credit to everyone who helps you become who you are. And it was her mother, it was a high school counselor, and her first boss who was her mentor. So yes, you've been successful because you learned from others. And it's the principles and the lessons that you implemented, that they taught you, that made you the success. So you're talking about the wild successes you've had, but you say, my first manager said, Zeus, when you lead a team, be sure to. And that worked superbly well when we did this.
Remember, it was Darren LaCroix would always say, don't be the hero in your own story. So I like that.
Well,
approach.
who do you think taught him that? Yeah, don't be the hero of your own stories.
Lady
Yes.
in the camps.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah, he heard it here first. Yeah. All right, good. Joy, so nice to see you. Do you have any questions, comments, areas you want advice?
I do. I'm I've been in a whirlwind. I'm sure a lot of you have been too. I've been taking care of my mom for a really long time, and it's at the point where I had to let go of the business that was, and slowly I'm coming back to the world of the business world, and I want to do something which is more aligned to what I'm actually doing with her. So I've been looking at doing something regarding caregiving. I may not have all the answers, but I can share my experiences of doing this for a really long time. And I have some, tips that I've come up with. I think are interesting to people that they might not have considered. Looking at doing some podcasting, blogging. Eventually, I'd like to do a book. And really, what I want to do, and I haven't approached her yet, is I'd love to be working with my mom, who has also given presentations and speeches and worked in the field of aging. So it's a really interesting mix from the side of the caregiver and the person who's being cared for. But I want to start with my stuff first and then integrate what she has coming into it. So I'm just, when I think about bringing this back into the world of speaking, because I want to be doing webinars and video things, I'm just trying to figure out where to position this. I mean, I've come up with a couple of titles and things. I bought the domain take care-give care.
Okay.
And one of the things that I talk about to other people is, who are you talking to? She may be your mom, but who are you really talking to? Are you talking to the person? Are you talking to the medication? Are you talking to the disease? Any number of things. And I've also come up with a list of different levels of caregiving. So you could be in any one of those stages, about where you're at. And so I'm coming up with ideas right now, but I'm having a little trouble zoning in on getting out of the gate.
Good. Well, very much like Barbara, you are going to begin. First step is to begin and the creative process. So one, you get a pad, I love flip charts because you can see them, they're visual, you walk in the back office and you write another comment on.
Yeah.
And it would, whether it's short blog posts, whether it's on LinkedIn, I think LinkedIn, short pieces of advice on LinkedIn would be very good. And see if there are, although LinkedIn is more professional, see if there are any groups, there would be professional groups in the people you would like to partner with. Join them, read their posts and make comments from your point of view to develop relationships that way. I know when I was first really updating, this probably going back about 5 years, my social media activity to get serious about it. And my director of social media said, Patricia, you've got to join all these groups. Then before you add content, go and make comments. So for example, you read somebody else's article on presentation skills, just exactly what I talk about, and say, love your article on 5 ways to open. I agree with all of them, and my 6th favorite is this. So you're adding your own content and connecting with others.
Yes, and I've heard that from Facebook also.
Yes, you could do that. And then you can also start writing short blogs. And if you quote another expert from the different points of view you like to partner, then you could always send it to them and say, just so you know, I'm a big fan. I mentioned you in this. And what many other experts have done with podcasts, they interview all the people they want to either work for or have a partnership with.
Yeah.
Bring them as an expert.
Okay. So now that you've mentioned LinkedIn, of course, it's got everything that I used to do. So I guess I need to move that information into the past and come up with something else for the current.
Exactly. Just update your profile with what you're doing now. You have a topic that is so relevant for this point of view, this point in history, because so many parents, and I bet if we went around this Zoom square, a lot of other people are closely connected to the same issue.
Okay. I can give it a start in those locations. So
good. And you got my email if you need any help. You know where I am.
Yes,
good. All right. Karen, it's so nice to hear you. What did you do since we had our last Zoom call, just the 2 of us?
I have been working on the letter. I'm struggling with it because I want it to be something somebody's going to read. And in the meantime, I've had to put together our annual report letter, which I use some of the ideas we shared in that letter. So I haven't forgotten to get you a copy. I'm just trying to get it to a point that I'm ready to share it.
All right. Now tell everybody who the letter goes to and why.
All right. I am working on a letter to the members of this credit union, explaining to them how important they are to the success of the credit union, and that every member benefits by the business each other does. It's something that I think if people understood, they would want to do all their business with their credit union because everyone benefits from it. Yet in this day of ease and convenience, people will go or do their business with whatever channel seems to be easiest. So I want to make sure that we hear what they need to bring their business here, but I want them to know that they're so important to the success of this organization.
In other words, Karen, the credit union, just raise your hands if you happen to belong to a credit union. All right, good. Hey, here's a full target audience. This is how you learn. The credit union we might have your car loan, but we want your checking account, your savings account. We want more. So as a matter of interest with our credit union participants, our members, what would your credit union have to say to you to get you to do more business with them? Zeus, I'm going to start with you.
Sorry, could you repeat the question, please?
Yes. You are a member of a credit union.
Yes.
Do they help you with every loan, every account that you have?
Not with every account or every loan, but they do help, yes. I've had a loan with them in the past.
What would they have to do or tell you to get all the business that you could do with them?
Part of it would just be financially, making sure that they have the best interest rates, the best terms. So part of it is business. That's really what it comes down to most of the time. I have a great relationship with them. In fact, my sister used to work at that credit union, so it's even very personal, but they still don't get all the business. They have to still earn it.
And if you got, right, Claudette, you answer that question too.
Well, I will tell you that I belong to a credit union, and I think the term family should be in her letter, because you want to think of them as a supportive family, and you want to bring up the fact that if you have questions, there should be, and I'm hoping that her institution has this, some reaching hand out about, if you have any financial questions, come and ask us, because then that gives you permission and time to tell me some things that you offer that I didn't even think about. And so you want people to feel comfortable about coming in, no matter how small their financial question. And then when you've opened the door, you've got a winning point. If they don't see it as an institution that's just trying to make money.
Yes, that's great. Great information. Thank you.
All right, good. And Joy, did you put your hand up for a credit union? All right, we want to hear from you.
Yeah, I did. You know, you sparked an interest when you were talking about it and the family aspect. And sometimes I think my credit union is missing something, because certain things are difficult to do and challenging, and they're missing some of the mobile tools that would be really helpful. But the mere fact that you said we support each other, we help each other in a day and age where we're looking for support in our business, it's like, yeah, how could I support someone else's business? You know, maybe it brings some business back to me, maybe not, but it's an opportunity to do good, and somehow make it, if not a family, some kind of a tribe, that we all make it work. And tell me again what the purpose of the letter is, just to remind people so that they feel better about being members.
So they think of us first when it comes to whatever financial need they have.
Okay.
So oftentimes they're doing business in different places and we don't understand why, because we do have the best rates and the terms and rewards and all kinds of benefits to those people that do their business here. So it's always, we don't understand, why don't you come here? And we're trying to get to that point of understanding,
Okay.
of mutual help, and the fact that we are here for the good of each other. We're not here to drive profits.
So they are members already.
They are members already.
So one, they've forgotten that you are the same, you offer the same features, and two, it's also important to thank them for their patronage.
For sure.
Yeah, because they probably just forgot.
Yep, I agree.
Karen, may I offer a suggestion as well? It's Christy.
Oh, please.
If these are existing customers, have you ever thought about conducting a survey and reaching out and asking them so that you can get that feedback and then just organize the feedback?
We surely do. We do all the annual surveys, the service surveys that go out each day. And if we get a comment or a suggestion, we act on it and we call the members. So we want to make sure that they know we listen and we really want to change or do what they need. So yes, we take those seriously. Thank you.
But are you asking the questions to what you were just asking us today?
No, I don't think we are. I don't think we are asking it in that way. So that's a good idea. I'm going to put that down. Perhaps survey with the questions exactly, what would it take? What are we missing? Yeah, that's a good idea. Asking the questions.
Also remember that when you're doing a survey, every survey wants to point back to you as the solution. So sometimes in a survey, instead of saying, what are we missing? You'll say, are you aware that we handle X, Y, and Z? And is this something you've ever considered a service using? Or is there a service that's missing from here? Because then that re-highlights what you have to offer.
And Barbara, you have your hand up?
Yes, I just wanted to mention that I bank at a credit union and go to the drive up frequently. And it would seem that there would be a perfect opportunity for the person who's helping the drive up person mention that this week we are highlighting X amount of X service. And if you're interested, you could call this number or check on the website for this, just to kind of give them a memory jog or let them know that that service is available. It's being featured that month. Just an idea.
Yeah, that's a good one. And I'll just share with you real quickly. We have been introducing to many people that haven't used our credit card over the last year. And we made great strides in the growth of that product. And in the survey, when asked how did the member is asked, why did you open your credit card account with Elga? Was it advertising, email, somebody talking to you? And almost 80% of the people that took it in the last year said it was because a teller offered it at the window. So it's effective. We know that.
Yeah. All right, wonderful. Have we all learned the power of informal research because you might think these are strangers. We all have a connection, but you certainly didn't know them, Karen, before you came in. You got some good ideas.
Exactly. Thank you, everyone.
I'm going to throw out one line for all of us. Can you help me better understand why? Can you help me better understand why we have the best rates, the best service, and come up with the third one? We don't look after all your banking needs or financial needs, whatever the right word is. Good.
Okay. And Patricia, I see some nice chats coming in. Can I ask a question? Zeus, you said perhaps it's a confidence issue, big company versus smaller company, and we are definitely challenged with that people automatically think big banks offer better technology or mobile or that type of thing. How do we compare? How do we talk about that to a person? Just
kind of goes along with my next comment about it could be just an education issue. Like I'm a little bit older, so in the past, I remember with my sister's ATM, I wouldn't use the debit card because it would cost me like $2 extra or $1 extra to use at B of A or Wells Fargo or whatever was around back then. I don't know if that's the case anymore, but it could just be a lack of information. If everything is on an even playing field, inform the members, remind us, let us know, and that could remove that barrier.
This is probably not something good to bring up, but I will say that there are there's a lot of movement against the larger banks because people have a trust issue with many of them because of things that have happened personally. You shouldn't attack any bank in your letter, but you could say something in your letter about, do you feel like, there's just organizations are too big to help you. We aren't. We're perfect to help you. Or I'm not saying the word's correct, but.
And this is one line that I give a lot of my more smaller, medium-sized clients who are competing against big competitors. We are large enough to handle all your needs and small enough that you're still important to us. You're still a VIP with us.
I like it. Because
we do feel sometimes with enormous entities, how can I possibly be important? I always say to all my vendors, I'm not your biggest customer, but I pay faster than everybody else. And one last comment for Karen, then we'll move on to other people. But Ed, would you put a nice note in? Would you like to tell Karen in person? And you made me feel superior because when you closed all your applications, you could got Zoom perfect. Lesson to us all who think we are so smart.
Yeah, I'm glad you talked, because I've had to use Zoom and it's been a nightmare. And I would not have known that if I just never thought about it. But
well,
you
know something, Edward, in the FrippVT Zoom session that Paul and I made in FrippVT, the last course is one Paul and I made at the beginning of pandemic. How to use Zoom for business and look like an expert, and that would have been one of the most simple tips we put in.
Well, you know, from the courses that you gave, how important repetition is before something really sinks in.
Yes, we do know that. Exactly. Yeah. And I'm often saying to Paul, now, I know you told me last week, but can you tell me again? Now, Edward is a speaker in the dental world because that's where his major successes come from. Do you have any special questions about your speaking, Edward?
Well, not specifically, unless it comes up, but I did want to say something because someone mentioned, although I wasn't involved in a credit union, I did have a very close relationship with my bank, and it was a smaller bank. And they would feature the like a business of the month, and they'd set up a table in the lobby with promotional materials or in pictures and information about the business. So I got to do that. So that you know, is another way of maybe bringing some more visibility within the bank. It was really very nice that they offered that, and I took advantage of it.
Yes, and I bet you told all your patients and everyone who would listen, oh, my bank features me. And that's why simply, if you spotlighted them, even on a website or a mailing, they are going to make sure that all their friends know about it. And seeing I have an audience, I am very proud of the fact that a speech I wrote for a Johnson & Johnson executive was printed in Vital Speeches of the Day in the March issue, along with Biden and world leaders. And I got an honorable mention in the Cicero Speechwriting Awards. So now what I am assuming Edward did is you got your friends, you like your supportive friends to know what you've done well. And if it happens to be featured in your local credit union publication, newsletter, or lobby, they're going to tell their friends. All right. All right, Bill Brown, you've been very quiet. Bill is one I often bring in to give advice to other people. Is there any area you would like help with?
At this point in time, no, but is it possible or permissible for me to ask Phil a question?
Yes, of course.
Phil, is this, when you're speaking to your potential clients over Zoom, is this the picture that they get, or are you in a totally different environment? And if so, what is it?
No, this is my setup. This is my home office setup.
Here's my comment, and Patricia, I'd appreciate your comment, and tear me apart if you want to. You've got the lighting that you have in front of you is very yellow. The lighting in back of you is very yellow. You blend into it. In fact, my attention is drawn to the lights. You look at Patricia, her face pops. She is the center of her picture, and it makes her look that much stronger. Yours, the impression I got at first was a little bit on the weak side, so you might want to consider, if nothing else, brightening up the light in front of you a little, not a yellow light, but perhaps a whiter light. That's just my impression.
Okay, thank you.
Well, this is working in Zoom. Of course, this only works because you have a green screen. And You don't have to have green screens. You do have to have a tidy background or a nice background if you're going to see the public. So there is nothing wrong with having it at your house. I do, and I'm sure this is the evening and you're a lot later than California. And so therefore the lighting that you have in front of you round does change. But external lights do help. I'll just show you what happens when I turn I've got lights above me, 2 rows, one on 2 tracks. I'm going to turn off my lights and show you the difference it makes.
And while she's doing that, Phil, is that a virtual background?
No, this is my office.
Oh, okay then.
It's not, it's a nice looking office. Can you see the difference? And I have 2 tracks of lights.
Yes, I can see the difference. And I also have a key light temperature, and like I've got good lighting because photography is my hobby.
Yeah.
But I am very interested in the comments about the background, whether it's not highlighting me, because my lighting is set perfect for my skin tone. But there's more going on. So I do like the feedback that I'm not the star of my show because I've got too much backlighting.
I've got photography lamps in front of me as well, and it may be perfect for your coloring, but you're blending into the lights in the background. That's my personal opinion. You know, take that for what it's worth, but that was the first thing that struck me.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, we'll paint the place on the weekend. Thank you.
No,
awesome.
Don't do that.
No. It's just in some way, make something different. It's a nice frame, but I think you're getting lost in the busyness behind you.
Yes.
I have busyness, and I have a coach who's going to help me do this better. And I just ordered all this equipment because he told me to order it. And so I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, good. All right. Well, I did have one area of content. If you are interested, or we can keep answering your questions. I'll tell you what I had planned to say if you wanted. I don't know what and that was, we all have to, we prepare what we're going to talk about. We have our presentation, and there are times that you have the opportunity to abandon your normal plan, still deliver your content, and make it look as if your well-prepared presentation, you wrote it on the spot. Would anyone be interested in that?
Yes.
Yes? All right, here are a few examples. This is simple. And we do have a whole course in FrippVT called, not just for professional speakers, it's how do you personalize and customize your presentation. But one simple example, I was speaking for United Airlines. And whenever I speak for AAA Insurance, United, anyone I do business with. As part of the introduction, I always have them introduce me by my frequent flyer number, by my account number, my policy number. So please welcome customer such and such, or account number A-something. That makes a connection. Now, that doesn't work with everyone because you don't do business with everybody who hires you. However, if you do, it really makes a connection and everyone laughs. And we all know we like to start with a laugh, even if we really didn't create it. Then they were giving out pens. And you've seen these pens, you click them and there's another slogan. You click it, there's another slogan. They're core values, teamwork, excellent, whatever. And after my opening comments, I said, you know, one of the best parts of speaking, people give you great gifts. This is a very nice pen. And I clicked it read out what came up on the screen, like teamwork, commitment, and I delivered my content around the click of the pen. Then the second click, I delivered it. Now, understand, a lot of that content would have been in the presentation. However, putting it together, not even knowing what was coming up next, because they handed it to me just a few minutes before I spoke. Now, this doesn't work if you have a PowerPoint that you can't change. These were the days really before we used PowerPoint for our keynote speeches, but that was one. Another was when I was booked to speak to this was the Georgia Community Bankers. And this was at the Ritz-Carlton in San Francisco. And the first speaker was a college professor who had written 7 books on leadership. And he had the blackboard, you know, just like a professor, and he was writing his notes as he was going along. And his opening presentation said, I've written 7 books on leadership, yet I've never been in business myself. And then he go through in his principles he wrote on the board. And it was a really good speech and they loved it. Then there was a break. And the Ritz-Carlton, of course, banquet people were taking the blackboard off the stage, ready for my introduction after the break. And I said, take it off the stage, but leave it on the side. And after my introduction, which I plan to give anyone, I said, wasn't that an interesting speech by Professor such and such? And he told us he's written 7 books on leadership. He's never been in business. My entire life has been in business. I just haven't written 7 leadership books. So let's look at his principles from the point of view of an entrepreneur and how it might help you and your customers. And I used his talking points from my point of view. Again, most of the content I would have put in my presentation anyway. However, there were a couple of points that triggered content that I have in my repertoire that I hadn't used. All right, you like those? Want another? This again is going back earlier in my career when there was a time I would never have dreamed a good portion of my life would be working with engineers. And I was booked to speak at, this was in Atlanta, Celebration of Engineering Month or week. And this was a company, and of course, all the audience with engineers. And I had talked to people in advance and I couldn't quite find a connection. I knew it would be okay. And they loved my demo video, but I didn't quite feel comfortable as these were all engineers. And a big executive from their company was introduced. This was after a luncheon, and he gave a presentation. And I grabbed the program just at the luncheon. And he said, I have 5 points, and I wrote them down. And everyone applauded because it was a big fancy boss and they were thrilled. And then I was introduced. And after my intro, you always stick with your planned opening. Always go with your opening that works. Then, even if there is an area you want to tie into that happened before, I would still stick with your opening and then tie it. Anyway, I said, I could tell how excited you were to hear from Mr. Big Bucks. And I really enjoyed what he said about this. Well, if it's good enough for your boss, it's good enough for me. And I used his talking points with my point of view. And afterwards, you know, the meeting planner came up and said, I had no idea you knew so much about engineering, which of course I didn't. So they were just a few. I mean, yes, Claudette, I can go on forever, but these were a few examples. Yes, Claudette.
I have a question, because we usually craft our speeches with a good intro and a to be remembered closing. You haven't spoken about that with any of your examples, but I'm assuming you also then use the closing you'd planned on, maybe modifying it only a little bit. Is that true?
Yes, I probably would have used the closing that I planned on. Yeah. All right, Phil, back to you. Do you want to deliver any content, ask a question?
My question would be, I'd like to start a new podcast based on Phil's Profit Points, which was a newsletter I had years ago, and I haven't written anything specifically on that. So wondering about your advice for podcasts, shorter, longer, things like that.
And please notice that Phil turned off the lights behind him. And with a show of hands, do you think that's better? This is informal research. That's your, and
that's
this
awesome.
is just
Thank you.
as we did with Karen. This is your informal, safe people. Now, what I would probably do, because they are attractive features, Phil, I would take them away and maybe put your book or something behind you. Exactly. So you might put them all mock-ups of them in those spaces.
And there were 2 other books back there already.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can see we can't read them, of course.
Yes. Well, that's,
but
yeah.
So I would probably, the one book behind you that is white with the green, or that's what it looks like, I would probably remove it, and perhaps, I don't know if you have bigger, probably, so it's clean behind your head. So we focus on your face and have the biggest, really, it's the biggest size books. When you are full screen, it would show better. So what I am going to do here, I'm going to pin you. All right. So now if you pin, you know how you go up to the top right and pin, Phil? Now, you see, when you are full screen, because Harold can see me downstairs because we're networked in, and he gets very frustrated because he works with the lights, etc. And he said, well, when you're little, you look one way. When you're big, you look a different way. So you do look better when you're pinned. I would probably, move the lamps and perhaps put the books there. And I can't read the title of the one book that is by your ear. So I would probably take that away. You have a wife that is very good at giving you advice?
Aren't all wives in that
category?
category?
Yes, if you have one, what I suggest you do is get her to tune into Zoom in another room and try the different ways, and she'll tell you. This
Very
is
good.
what I call you practice with safe people.
Yes.
Now, to answer your podcast question. Podcasts are so much work. I congratulate you all, those who do it. I would just like to be people's guests. Yes. You are the podcaster. Can you tell which shows get more viewership, or however you satisfy how you get your statistics?
I don't know because I'm new to this.
Oh, you are new. Do you listen to podcasts?
I listen to some, not many. I'll watch some shorter YouTube videos more for hobby interests than work or professional.
All right, let's do some research for all our attendees. I'm going back to gallery view. How many of you listen to podcasts? And for the 3 of you that we can't see your video, say yes or no.
Yes, many.
All right.
Yes.
And we have quite a few people do. Then for those of you who listen to podcasts, what do you think is the ideal time to listen?
30 minutes.
Oh, yeah, no more than that.
All right, no more than 30.
I would say a bit longer than that. I think the beauty of a podcast, the beauty of a podcast is that it can really go into depth on some subject. So I would say at least an hour, I would venture.
Well, you have just answered what our research has told us is that younger people who are stimulation junkies with short attention spans want to get their message. So you were one of the young kids, Edward, want to get your message fast. Now, Brian, now look at it. Brian, being an educator, though, wants to know the whole story and the information behind it. So he has a different answer. Yes, Claudette.
Unfortunately, I don't listen to podcasts, but I have a question. If in fact you went to an hour and you wanted to satisfy the younger people, what would it be like to give a shorter version of what you're going to go in depth about for the first half hour, let them drop off and go into details?
All right, Edward, you are feeling very passionate about this subject.
Well, I identify, even though I said half an hour, I identify with Brian because I have a teaching website that I made 30 courses for. And in the beginning, I knew about the short attention span of the younger dentists. And I tried to gear it for them, but I found that it wasn't long enough to really teach them something. So all my courses are an hour now. And so even though I think they have a short attention spans, I just think an hour is a good amount of time to really teach something.
All right, here is the secret, I believe. You notice FrippVT is put together in small digestible chunks for busy people. You can watch for an hour, you can watch for 5 minutes when you're on hold if you want to watch a chapter. I believe it's like listening to any information. The good part about podcasts is you listen when you are doing something else. When you're driving, I'm a big Audible book. I consume Audible books. I will listen to a 14-hour book in 2 days. When I'm cleaning, organizing, walking, exercising, making up. Any message needs to take as long as is necessary to give the information that you want to communicate. And if it is engaging, if it is fun, if I can find application to my interests, I'll probably stay. Or come back again later. That's why one of the changes that Lightspeed made with FrippVT, when you go in, do you want to start at your beginning or pick up where you left off? So with a podcast, I don't know. Can you pick up where you left off? Yes, you can.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, all right. I would, for you, Phil, I would focus on what Alan Weiss would probably say. Who do you want this to appeal to? And if you just say, look, here are 5 clients I have that I want more business from. Here are 5 clients I would do anything to do business with, and design your program with those 10 people in mind.
Awesome.
And
Thank you.
then direct attention them and say, we should always, if this is of interest to you, who forward it to, recommend this to other colleagues, other friends, other business partners. Now, one of my projects I'm working on at the moment is helping RFID experts who are resellers of one of my technology clients become YouTube stars by having their own shows. I help write them and script them and coach them on delivering. And one I was coaching, and he was saying, oh, I really love geeking out on this. And I'll say, well, why don't we do one show the way it's designed, and then say, if you're like me and really like the geek out, the next show is just geek. So there's one we have to do to appeal the sponsor, etc. But there will be other people who want to go in depth and really be what he says, really geek out. So you do another show for them. And there's nothing wrong. I believe most experts would say there has to be a consistency. Do you always do them around 30 to 40? But the good news with podcasts, it doesn't, depending the technology, it doesn't cut off at a certain time. If you are giving a case history, if you're interviewing someone that's really fascinating and you want one more story, let them do it. All this great advice, and I'm not an expert.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I mean, the Joe Rogan, who's extremely successful at podcasting. I mean, he goes, I know it's very extreme, but 2.5, 3 hours sometimes. So people are actually hungry for good, interesting content. And I think that, yes, it's common knowledge people have short attention spans, or that was the myth. But what has been revealed by podcasts is that, yes, there is a much greater market for longer, in-depth content and interviews. I think that's one of the things that podcasts reveal.
Okay, good. Good. And Edward reinforces, sometimes to really teach, you need more time. Good. Wonderful. All right, let's go back to you, Greg. All right. You gave us an opening and we gave you an idea. Pick up your presentation somewhere else.
So one of the major things that I've found.
Now, Greg, if it wasn't a thing, what would it be?
I know you hate those words.
We're all guilty of this.
If I was close enough, you'd hit me, wouldn't you?
Yes.
One of the major benefit or things, it's not a thing, is it? One of the
Well, stick with benefits and see what works.
One of the real benefits I've found that helps you improve your emotional reaction is to look at the things you focus on and how intense.
Now, if you weren't focusing on things, what would you be focusing on?
The
Challenges, setbacks, situations, experiences.
Thoughts, beliefs.
Yeah.
yeah, experiences probably. Yeah. I'd say experiences. Yeah. Mm.
So what I'm suggesting you do, Greg, is you just record on your phone, in your own Zoom account, just talk through what you're thinking to say in your presentation. And perhaps you want to stand up and do it, or if you're behind your camera, just speak it. You know, have a simple framework and just talk it.
Right.
And
Yes.
then close it, and then listen to what you're saying, and pretend you are Patricia Fripp or Claudette or Bill Brown or anyone here giving you advice.
Yes.
And you take one sentence at a time. And you think, is there a way you could make it better? If you have a thing, you stop and ask yourself, what do I mean? And you write down your new tight script. Because we work on the principle, this is what mini coaching does. You work on the principle that if you perfect one paragraph, quality spreads. And
Yes.
those changes will carry through your presentation.
Oh, thank you. That's great. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you. Mm.
Now, Brian, Brian, you popped in just before we were leaving last time, and I'm glad you're back again. Do you have any questions? Any advice you need?
Sorry, not this time. Sorry, I came in late due to work.
Yes. Sorry, say that again, Brian.
Sorry, I came in late due to work.
I know you work too hard. Yes. Is there any help? The purpose is to see if there's any advice you need around speaking, presenting, or any communications you have at work.
Not at this time. All the trade shows are up right now, and I wasn't fully prepared this time, so I'm sorry.
Well, you know, I've given you an IOU. If you need a date with me to talk about whatever you're working on, you can. I will send you a link again when we're over.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, comments, or we can wave goodbye?
I have a question.
All right.
I think I told you that I was thinking about revamping a speech. And the reason is, I think what I talk about is now scientifically backed, and that was in the strongest ally. But I don't come in with credentials. So I'm thinking of starting with credentials. The credentials that I'm talking about are that I was an abused child. I could have been a statistic. I did the textbook thing and married an abusive husband, but then I turned it around, and I turned it around because of the strongest ally. And so I would like to start with a little bit of that story, not enough to make people down, but enough to do that. Is that an issue?
Well, if you have great content that is backed up with credentials that come from others who are acknowledged experts or strong research, I would think that is enough. I would save your personal story for the end.
Okay.
It would be worth trying.
Okay.
Now, Claudette, I know you have signed up. Oh, I should be telling you, on the 15th of May, are you still there, Paul?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, I never know if you're still there and just kept it on and you out cooking supper. Anyway, Paul is there for technical questions. But anyway, we have a masterclass on the 15th of June, which is, we open the doors at 8:30 Pacific time. It's 9 until 1, and then we keep the doors open for as long as people have questions. And the purpose is just to go through the foundation of a speech. However, this is helpful if you have a speech you're working on or one you want to revamp. And we're going to just go through all the steps. Now, for FrippVT members, it's $50. And we have a follow-up rather event like this for any attendees who thought through what they've gone through. So if you're interested, Paul can send you, you just put, Paul, you can send everyone who's in the link, and the code would be
VT user, and that is actually the 15th of May.
What did I say?
June. So that'll be the
15th of June.
of May.
You got to excuse me. This has been a very long day. And I was telling Paul, I had a major frustration earlier today. It's a wonder I even remember it. It was the 15th. The 15th of May. So essentially, if you have any interest, VT members are $50. I'm sure it won't be enormous. We have about, I don't know, 13 or 14 signed up, including one speaker who charges $25,000. I said, why do you want this? Anyway, so we'll just go through all the different steps to talk you through it, if you have any interest. Hopefully it will be fun, engaging, and Paul is putting, oh no, did you put it in the chat or that's something else?
Yes, coupon code is VT user.
Okay, and can you put the link to the event?
Yes, I will.
And I tell you where it is always. Fripp.com, click on events, and everything I'm part of is listed. I'm speaking at a few Toastmaster conferences, one this weekend in Chicago, and these are free. These are free. You don't have to be in Chicago to join. And then I'm speaking at one the week after that's in England. And most of these are free. In fact, both of those are free. Mark Brown is also speaking in England. And on Saturday in Chicago, I deliver my good to great presentations, and then they've sent in 4 people for coaching that I changed their presentations that I'll be coaching them on. Anyway. So that's that. So Paulette, is that the speech you're going to work on in masterclass?
Yes, it is. And the only reason I was thinking of starting out the way I was going to start out is because the last time I presented it, somebody said something like at the end, thanks for reminding us of something we all know. But I thought I was talking about things that were relatively new in terms of.
You mean, yeah, okay, subjects that were relatively new.
Yeah. Well, at least applications that were what.
Okay.
Relatively new. And I didn't think that came across. So I need to work on that. The reason I thought about putting my story in is that says, this is what happened. I mean, I went from what could have been a statistic to a very successful career in Silicon Valley with 6 figures, right? So it is important to know that this is a very powerful thing they can do.
Okay.
It's not just think right, focus right. You know, it's
well, if it's worked for you before,
yes,
then keep it, and we'll just see if we can come up with what make it even better. If you were going to deliver it tomorrow, what would your opening 2 lines be?
Have you ever been bullied? All
right, now you know this, Claudette, because yes,
I'm going to work it around till we bully ourselves.
Okay, that's fine. have you ever been bullied? And you know what Miss Fripp is going to say, because you've heard me say it multiple times. How often have you been bullied? Because if you say, have you ever? Yes, and I lived through it. How often have you been? It's frequent. The chances are you need the answer.
Okay. Thank you.
How
for-
often, especially if your point is you were bullying yourself more than once, Claudette.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it ties into the point you're going to make later.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Well, all right, wonderful people. Thank you very much for joining us. As we asked last time, do you want us to keep doing this once a month?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. We just open the doors. Anyone who comes in, I'll always have a couple of stories to tell you. But if you're acting as informal research to each other, and Brian just has something to do.
Can I ask one quick question before we go?
Of
Perhaps
course you can.
I'm setting up a bit of a, not here in the other room, like a bit of a stug off, a couple of flip charts. And I've got a camera, I've got a robotic camera that can move and follow me. Is that better than having a static camera?
If you're going to move, I would think it would be.
Yeah, because you know, you can go past, you can go past, present, future, and you can do a lot more things when you move. And so
You have, then what I'm going to recommend you do, and this is open to any FrippVT user, when you go into your FrippVT, there's the top carousel and there are the boxes below. And one is need help. If you click on need help, you go on to Paul's calendar.
yes.
So Greg, if you wanted to go in a Zoom meeting in there, couldn't you watch Paul and see if it worked?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Thank you.
Good.
Yeah. All right then.
All right.
Thank you for that. All right. Excellent.
So anyone, now, if you just need a cup of tea, Brian, you meet me at the Breakfast Club. If you need help that is in our area of expertise, presentations from Fripp, technology from Paul, you can make an appointment.
I'm very grateful. Thank you.
All right, good. All right, Phil, do you have a burning question before we close?
No, just to wish you a happy belated birthday.
Well, thank you. I'm still celebrating. Joy, burning question before we close.
Not at this point, but thank you so much.
All right. You feel better for having joined us?
You know, I
Absolutely.
really appreciate it as I'm dealing with mom, which I had to run out
Yeah.
for. You know, it's so nice to connect and keep moving forward in this capacity.
All right, good.
Thank you.
Good. All right. Well, wonderful people. Our FrippVT users are very important to us. We're here whenever we can help you. And if you're interested in the masterclass, that's fine. Otherwise, we'll let you know. It'll be probably 4 weeks from today. We'll have another open house.
This is your birthday song. It isn't very long. Hey, happy birthday, Patricia.
Thank you very much indeed. All
Bye
right,
now.
for our friends who don't have webcams, if you need Paul to help you set up your webcam, perhaps we can do that for you. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Patricia. Thanks, everyone. Bye.